Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and now that I've adjusted my training again and I've gone back to something I've used quite a few times in the past historically, I'm a big believer in, and that's my own take on accumulation training for strength building. And something that Coach Paul Carter likes to call it base building. That's his definition of base building. Is very, very similar to my variation on accumulation training. And it's essentially the idea of what you guys see me starting to do on my bench here. The method I'm using here now that I did 3 workout sessions just to establish some baseline strength again on my close grip bench press because I haven't done any real benching in a year and a half. I've been an overhead press guy. So I want to very, very quickly get back to over 300 pounds pause for reps. And what I'm doing is adding sets. So I'm starting with a baseline here, as you guys see in this first video, or the video I did earlier. I'm going to reloop the footage here. I did a few warm-up sets, and then I went into doing 3-rep sets. And in this case, I'm working with something that's somewhere in the 70 to 75% range, just based it on rate of perceived exertion from my baseline set last week. And I've started with 6 sets of 3. Now, what I'm going to end up doing is over the next few weeks, adding sets in my workouts. So since I'm able to do 6 sets of 3 on this exercise, I'm going to go to 7 sets of 3, then 8 sets of 3, 9 sets of 3, 10 sets of 3. Now, when we talk about basic progressive overload, we know that anytime you're able to add weight, add reps, add sets, anything like that, you're doing more work. That's progressive overload. That's the basis of not even modern exercise science as far as strength and muscle gains go, but even the ancient world. The ancient Greeks even understood this. That's the model we've been using for 2,500 years. It's a successful model because it works. It works, and we've seen it work. Even the ancient Greeks knew that this worked. Now, the idea here behind the adding sets is that I'm taking a weight that I can move with a relatively quick speed. People can do this same sort of concept using 5-rep sets, 8-rep sets, 10-rep sets, and just add sets as you go as a form of progressive overload. But in this case, I'm doing it with triples. And the reason I'm doing it with triples is because it adds another factor to it. Because normally what you would be doing is you're just adding pure volume. And most people understand that concept. More volume equals more work equals more muscle growth. More muscle growth equals more strength. I don't think anyone who understands basic training philosophy is going to challenge that concept. That's pretty well understood, pretty well accepted in almost every circle. Time-proven concept. In this case, I'm using fairly low reps. The reason I'm doing that is because in this case, if I can stimulate a little hypertrophy, that's okay. I like that. That's good. That's a positive thing. But in my case, I'm cutting. I'm losing body fat. I might gain some muscle in some of these areas because they're areas I haven't worked in this particular angle for a long time, meaning chest presses. So I might gain some muscle from it. I wouldn't rule it out, even though I'm cutting because I'm slow cutting and I'm eating a lot of calories to do it. A little bit of recomposition is actually possible. It's possible. Not going to be much, but we might see some. So the extra volume by me doing this might stimulate some hypertrophy, and if I can get some, hey, that's great. I'm not going to turn that down. But in this case, by doing triples, I'm able to do some things. And this is one method I've always really liked, doing 3-rep sets during my accumulation phases. And the reason for that is that we know that maximum power can generally only be generated about 3 times before you need at least 45 to 60 seconds to rest again. Maximum power. Now, maximum power doesn't necessarily mean the heaviest weight. It means accelerating any weight at a maximum rate. Now, in this case, this is a moderately heavy weight, somewhere in the range of, 70-75% intensity. By accelerating it 3 times and then waiting, I am hitting my upper threshold muscle fibers. I'm also training myself for speed and power by doing the triples. You wouldn't quite get that same effect if you were to try to do 7 or 8 rep sets with this. Now, could I probably crank out an 8-rep set with this weight? Yeah, I probably could. I wouldn't be doing multiple of them. I would probably be too fatigued to do multiple sets of 8 with this weight. But I could do 1. Now, I'm not going to generate the speed and power that I'm getting, though, here because I'm accelerating it from a dead stop, pause reps as fast and as hard as I can. I'm hitting upper threshold muscle fibers, and then I need several minutes before they're fully recuperated. So the idea here is that I'm training for maximum speed, maximum power with a moderately heavy weight. That's ingraining motor units. That's training the motor pattern, and that's training my upper threshold fibers to turn on quickly, to get through that rate coding quickly and do that. So by doing it this way, I'm training myself to get stronger because I'm increasing speed strength. I'm increasing power using this given weight. Now, once you've done this for a little while, when you start adding sets, what is it that you're doing? You're increasing work capacity. Now, is there a hypertrophy end to that? Sure. There's a hypertrophy end, but we're also dealing with a progressive overload of force generation, because that's another factor also. By me adding sets, I'm still increasing workload in the sense that I'm making my body do more first reps, and I'm making it do more total reps where I generate maximum force. Therefore, you go from doing 18 reps in a session to doing 21 in a session with the same weight, having to do it with maximum power, right? So as we add a set during different workouts as we go, that's a new form of progressive overload, and it's particularly progressive overload on the nervous system end, the motor unit learning, the speed strength component, because I'm doing only sets in which I've rested enough to generate maximum speed, maximum force, and maximum maximum amounts of upper threshold muscle fibers, and repeatedly forcing myself to do it for volume. And by adding the volume of doing it, we're continuing to force the body to adapt, forcing the body to adapt. So in this case, adding volume for triples up until you get to a fairly large number of them will induce hypertrophy. It'll induce strength, but it'll also induce maximum speed generation. Training this way develops speed strength. And by doing it this way, some people would argue, well, you'd get more fatigue and more potential hypertrophy if you just did more sets, less sets, but more reps with this weight. Sure. But you're also going to get similar amounts of fatigue as you start getting later into adding more sets. The upside that you get from this is that we are training maximum power, and we're getting more first reps. And that's the interesting thing with doing submaximal work for large numbers of low sets or low reps, and to continue to add sets over time, you're training yourself in each training session to do more first reps. Some people would say, well, why does that matter? Because if you want to get up and you want to hit a relatively heavy deadlift, a relatively heavy squat or bench or any other exercise for a max, even if it's a training max, a true max, whatever, do you get several reps into the set? Meaning people who do a lot of 8-rep sets and a lot of 10-rep sets get really good at doing 8 and 10-rep sets. If you're having to do up to 10 sets of triples or doubles with any given exercise, you're having to set up 10 times. You're having to practice doing a first rep cold, because you've taken some sort of break, and then you're getting into position from whatever your starting position is or your setup is. You're now having to do 10 reps every workout by the time you get to 10 sets. That's a lot of first reps. If you're trying to get stronger and more proficient at doing a max, doesn't that carry over? Aren't you practicing doing that? Exactly the point. And some people actually take this to the extreme, and guys like Jamie Lewis, of doing singles this way. Doing single rep sets with weights that are only 85, sometimes 85% of your max, and building up through a workout to where you can do 20 singles. The same concept, isn't it? Yeah, it's the same concept. Adding sets with the lower reps in order to train the nervous system and the motor patterns of doing first reps and generating maximum force on a first rep after a setup. You still get a similar effect with triples, but you end up getting more potential for hypertrophy. But yeah, at a certain point, a person could practice doing it the other way, couldn't they? And build up to doing very high volumes of singles. And that's not a bad approach either. And that's the exact same concept we're really doing here, just doing singles instead of a set, but they're a set in and of themselves. But I think the overall message to take home here is that no matter what rep range you're using a system of adding for a period of time, accumulating more volume by adding sets with the same weight, the same reps until you've reached a certain performance number that you want to see before you increase the weight on the bar is a very, very effective method of increasing both size and strength concurrently. And it's a time-proven method. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.